Hello friends, tonight we step into one of the bloodiest and most desperate phases in American history, where guns fire, people fall, and oblivion kills more than bullets. This isn't a story about glorious generals or flags waving in victory, but about an unknown soldier, someone who survived only to die slowly each day. Forget the monuments and the proud national anthems, because the truth is, if you were a soldier in the American Civil War, you didn't really live, you just tried to survive in a hell called the homeland. Before you lean back comfortably, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you genuinely enjoy the content I share, and leave a comment to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's fascinating to see people following from all over the world. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's embark on tonight's journey together. Imagine waking up on a sweltering morning in 1861. If you're male, healthy, have 2 legs, and can yell hurrah, congratulations, you're about to be stuffed into a uniform, handed a draft notice, along with your mother's teary eyes and your father's pat on the shoulder like he's sending you to your coffin. You have no choice. If you're in the North, you fight for the Union and freedom. If in the South, it's for state, honor, and self-determination, otherwise known as defending slavery. Either way, you're just a name dragged into history's gears. The draft doesn't ask about your dreams, your sweetheart, or if you're ready to shoot the face of someone from Sunday school. It just says, show up at City Hall at 5 a.m., bring a clean shirt, if you still have one, a blanket, if the dog hasn't claimed it, and absolute obedience. You leave in a dawn red as chicken blood, clutching a handkerchief, your mother embroidered with "come back soon," that makes you want to cry. At the muster point, hundreds of men, various ages, smells and expressions, crowd into lines. An officer appears, yelling like he's picking cattle. Where's William? 27 hands go up. Who can shoot? 3 hands. One guy asks, shoot what? You get a paper saying Company C, tie a red rag on your arm to not lose your unit, and a piece of salt pork rancid as market trash. From that moment, you're no longer a person. You're a soldier. No one teaches you to shoot. No one asks if you're scared. You're crammed onto a horse cart, tight as a sardine tin, headed to a training camp, where rumors say you might die before learning to load a bullet. The camp's a swamp with torn tents, where you're screamed at all day, learn to stand straight for 4 hours, and faint in 4 seconds. At night, you curl up under a wet blanket, hearing someone sob. A soldier hangs himself. The company does morning drills like nothing happened. You start to understand, you're not human anymore. You're meat-powered software in a bloodthirsty machine. War doesn't ask where you're from, doesn't care if you'll return. From now on, nothing is yours. Not sleep, not your name, not even why you hold a gun. It's a welcome. You're a soldier in the American Civil War, and you've just begun a life that's no longer yours. Congratulations. After being herded into training camp like a wild cow fresh to the pen, you're immediately rewarded with a welcome gift, a uniform, if you can call it a uniform in any sense related to clothing. They call it a uniform, but it's really a pile of coarse, sloppily sewn fabric, wrinkled like a kitchen rag, and smelling moldy, as if dug up from under a stable floor. When they hand you the uniform, you don't wear it, you climb into it. The pants are so wide, you could fit 2 more people inside, while the jacket is tight across the shoulders, like it was designed for a muscular cat. The hat? A hard leather lump with worn edges, lined with a single grey hair, almost as long as your finger. It might have belonged to someone who died, maybe not, but when you put it on, it's so loose, it covers your eyes. You tilt your head, the hat tilts too. You turn your neck, the hat spins backward. It lives like its own creature, and you're its host. The shoes are another story. You get to pick a pair, not by size, but by whatever's left in the crate. You might wear a size 9, but you get one size 7 and one size 11. Neither fits. One crushes your toes till they're purple. The other flops like a kid's Halloween boot. No left or right distinction, because war shoes fit any foot. A few steps in, you realize that's the cruelest lie you've ever heard. Socks? No one mentions them. If you're lucky, you scavenge a pair from someone who's already shed their mortal coil. If not, you wrap rags around your feet and call it a revolutionary approach to pain. The belt? A cracked dry leather strip with a rusty iron buckle that could stab your gut if you fasten it wrong. The guy next to you, skinny as a stick, ties his around his neck to keep his pants from falling. He doesn't laugh. Neither do you. Everyone in the camp looks like an actor in a cursed fashion tragedy, where clothes have no sizes, only humiliation. Everyone stinks. Sweat, mildew, dead rats, and sometimes the smell of someone who pissed their pants in the cold night. But strangely, no one mentions it, as if everyone's accepted that stench is the army's official perfume. You look around and realize you're not a soldier from a painting. You're a walking sack of flesh, a sack dressed in buttoned burlap, wearing a rusty pot, trying to accept that abrasive cloth is what's covering your skin for the months ahead. At night, you try to peel off the uniform to sleep, but it clings to your skin like it's fused with your epidermis. The seams rub your flesh, leaving tiny scratches. You don't see them, but by morning, you'll see blood streaked across your shirt. You breathe, hearing the fabric crunch like 100 grains of sand grinding into every crevice of your body. And that's when you realize you're not wearing the uniform. You're swallowed by it. It's your new skin, the outer shell that marks you as a soldier, a piece of meat sent to the war's slaughterhouse. You're no longer Joe the newsboy or Sam the carpenter. You're now a soldier in Company C, dressed in buttoned sackcloth, wearing mismatched shoes, and unsure when you last saw your own clean face. And then something else creeps in, the feeling that the dirtier, more torn and rotten this uniform gets, the more it's proof you're surviving. Because only the living wear filthy clothes, the ones in clean clothes, they've been covered with a white flag across their chest. You pull your hat down over your eyes, not to block the sun, but to block the truth. Tomorrow you'll march in this outfit. If you're lucky, you'll only get blisters. If not, the next one wearing it might be a rat. You wake up when it's still too dark to call it morning. Dew clinging to the edges of your tattered tent, and the familiar camp smell hits your nose like a punch from a floor rag. Old sweat, warm piss, unwashed feet, and fermenting mud. You stretch, scratching an itch you can't quite place. Maybe mosquitoes, maybe lice, maybe the first sign of some tropical disease they haven't named yet. You fumble for your canteen, shake it, not a drop left. The soldier next to you used it last night to clean a wound from a thorn prick, a minor wound, but the act turned your canteen into a handheld germ factory. You stumble outside, looking for water, and at that moment, you're still naive enough to think there'll be a bucket of clean water, or at least a covered wooden barrel. Wrong. Big mistake. Water in the camp doesn't come from a tap, filtered through sand or boiled. It comes from a creek, half a mile away, a stream that looks sparkling under the sunlight, but is actually the perfect place to bury all the biological despair of the era. When you get there, 2 guys are pissing 3 meters upstream. Another is washing pus-soaked socks. A mule is drinking next to a dead chicken floating by. You look at the water, slightly yellow, glinting in the sun. It's the last moment you have enough sense to ask, is it okay to drink this? But thirst beats reason. You bend down, scoop a gulp with your canteen lid. The moment it hits your tongue, you taste the tang of mud, the mustiness of moss, and a warmth like someone brewed it in their armpit. But your throat's on fire. You drink, and that's it. You don't know it yet, but you just signed a lifelong contract with some rod-shaped bacteria laughing hysterically in your gut. You head back to camp, wash your face with that same water, feeling slimy like you just slapped mud on your skin. But everyone's like that. The old soldier next to you, a former veterinarian, says, "Don't drink the water when it rains. It washes down from the graveyard." You don't know if he's joking or serious, but you don't have a choice. That day, you drink 3 more times, each time less, but each time more desperate. By evening, your stomach starts rumbling, like a pot of spoiled fish stew left on the stove. The pain spreads from your navel to your back, up to your chest, then surges downward like a tsunami in your colon. You curl up in the tent, groaning softly, while around you are other groans, from hunger, homesickness, or stomachs playing their own war symphony. Another soldier says, "Just take some blue medicine from the surgeon, you'll be fine." You go look. The surgeon is a man with cracked glasses, holding a small knife, soaking its blade in what you swear is corn whiskey mixed with cement. He hands you a pill the size of a button, dark green, and says, "Swallow it. If you puke, good. If you don't, also good." You swallow and puke. A lot. Water, bile, and yesterday's meal, a half-gnawed biscuit riddled with maggots. You gasp, trembling, then collapse onto the ground. It's lightly raining now. Drops patter on your face. You open your mouth to catch them. Sweet, cold, clean. For a fleeting moment, you taste what real water is like, but then it passes, and the rainwater carries dust, mud, and horse manure from the hill above. You stop opening your mouth. The next day, you wake with a tongue like sandpaper and eyes red from dehydration. But you're alive. The guy next to you isn't. He had a fever, rambled, then stopped breathing at midnight. No one dared touch his body until noon, when an officer came and ordered, drag him out, dig a hole, bury him deep. You drink another gulp of water that day, this time from a kitchen barrel. Under the scummy surface are bits of moss and something suspiciously shaped, but you drink, and you'll keep drinking. Because in the American Civil War, dying from bullets wasn't as common as dying from diarrhea. And you, from today, officially begin a life where clean water is a myth, dirty water is the default, and thirst isn't a feeling, it's your essence until the war ends. This is the last time you smell clean water, and the saddest part, you've almost forgotten what it smelled like. You wake up when the sky's still dim, throat dry as roasted straw, stomach empty, and feet still aching from yesterday's drill. No one wakes you. It's the shrill whistle from a grumpy sergeant's mouth, like a broken pressure cooker, that drags you up like a corpse. You barely button your shirt before being herded into formation, rifle on your shoulder, legs shaking in mismatched shoes. We march today, the sergeant yells. The whole unit looks at each other. No one asks where, because everyone knows none of them know anything. Orders come down like thunder. No explanations, no arguments, no need to understand. Your job is to go, and you start going. The first step is the lightest, because you still have hope. By the 100th step, sweat trickles down your back. By the 1000th, your feet are numb, thighs burning like they're clamped in a vice. By the 4th hour, you're not walking anymore, you're shuffling. Step is a negotiation between willpower and peeling flesh. The march route is a rough red dirt path, the sun blazing down like someone's roasting you on a giant skillet. Trees are scarce, shade even rarer. Sometimes you pass abandoned cornfields, half-burned houses, remnants left by some unit before you, like a note saying, "Welcome to the trail of destruction." On the way, a soldier faints. The sergeant doesn't look. 2 others hoist him up like a sack of rice. You turn away, not because you're callous, but because if you look for more than 3 seconds, you'll notice you're shaking just like him. Noon comes, no lunch. There's a 1-hour break, but break means squatting in the sun, sipping water warm as boiled shoe broth, and chewing a biscuit, hard as a brick. Another soldier drops his canteen. No one helps him pick it up. Just a clang, then he silently retrieves it, under the gaze of 30 pairs of eyes, busy surviving. When the march resumes, everything starts to blur. Sky, ground, people, rifles, all merge into a hazy stream. You don't remember where you're going, why you're going, or if you'll ever return. You just know your feet are 2 slabs of charred meat, and your knees are singing a dirge in a language you've never heard. Someone starts singing to keep spirits up, a folk song, others groan in protest. Some curse, some cry. You do nothing, you just walk. By the 17th hour, dusk falls, the sun fading like an old stain. You see a sergeant stop, raise his hand. "We're here," he shouts. The unit breathes a collective sigh. 2. You look around. Before you is an empty field. No barracks, no tents, no food, no sign of any preparation. Just dirt, grass, and a few mosquitoes, the size of sparrows. Someone asks, "Where's the tent?" No one answers. Another asks, "What do we do next?" The sergeant says, "Wait for orders," and then silence. You sit down, letting your body collapse onto the hard ground. A line of pain shoots up your back like a whip. You set your rifle down, wanting to sleep, but mosquitoes swarm like you're a free buffet. No blanket, no pillow, no food ration. The guy next to you opens his bag, pulls out a dried sweet potato, takes a bite, then offers it to you. You look at him. He smiles, missing 3 front teeth. You bite into the potato, like swallowing a rock, but at least it has flavor. You whisper, "Why are we here?" He replies, "I heard, to set up tents." But there's no wood, no canvas, no orders, just the sky growing colder, and the creaking of your shoes, smelling like Civil War-era sanitary pads, as you take them off. That night, you don't sleep. Not because you don't want to, but because the ground's too hard. the mosquitoes too many, your stomach too empty, and your heart keeps pounding for no reason. You lie on your back, staring at the sky. A shooting star streaks by. The guy next to you says, "Make a wish." You wish. Gee, you don't say it out loud, because if you opened your mouth, it would only be one sentence. I want to go home. But you can't go home. You've marched 17 hours to reach a place with nothing. And the scariest part, tomorrow you might have to march again. To a place even worse. You wake up the next morning with a dry blade of grass stuck to your face, a swollen mosquito bite on your forehead, and a vague sense that last night you slept, or at least lay half dead in a state resembling sleep, among a crowd of people writhing like zombies not yet buried. And then, good news is shouted at the crack of dawn. Orders to move to the main camp. No one reacts, because no one has the energy to react. You stand up, feet numb as stone, rifle on your shoulder, head still spinning from failing to digest yesterday's dried potato. After 2 more hours of walking, through hills, past a muddy river, where a dead horse floats like an unwilling meat raft, you see a flagpole fluttering and a faded wooden sign. Training Camp, Noma 17. Freedom through discipline. A slogan that sounds like a threat. Welcome to the place where dreams die quietly, and bullets don't even need to be fired to keep you awake. The camp is a barren patch between 2 hills, where the wind howls like it wants to strip the skin off the living. Rows of tents are shoddily pitched with stained canvas, propped by wobbly wooden stakes and ropes from the last century. Each tent is designed for 4, but actually holds 10. You're led to tent 12, right next to the kitchen, and a puddle no one dares call a pond. The soldier leading you says one sentence: find a spot without someone's feet, lie down. Inside, 7 men are already there. 2 are sleeping, one's washing his feet with rainwater caught in canvas. 2 are arguing over who's hogging the blanket, and one's sitting, scratching his head, a repetitive act like it's his life's sole purpose. And in the corner, a pig, not a metaphor, a real black pig, with a torn ear and a face as sad as if it just heard the camp's eating boiled beans all week. It looks at you. You look at it. No one wins. Whose pig, you ask? No one answers. Someone glances over and says, "It's from tent 10, but that tent burned down. Now it's with us." You start to ask why'd it burn, but think better of it. Best not to know. You pick a spot near the entrance, not for the breeze, but to escape easily if the pig or your tent mates go mad. Each person in the tent carries a different smell: rotting shoes, stale tobacco, fermenting skin, and maybe the scent of despair. No one talks much, except a guy from Maine who keeps saying he used to build boats and hates water. Every time he says water, you think of yesterday's fetid creek, and your stomach rumbles like a war drum. There's no bed. The blanket's a torn wool scrap with a dried blood handprint in the corner. The pillow's your helmet. You lie down, feeling the icy ground pierce through your burlap shirt like it's whispering, "Welcome, I'm your bed." The pig comes closer, sniffs your foot. It takes a long whiff. You flinch, about to kick, but then think, at least it's warm. You let it be. It curls up by your feet, like a grunting heater. Night falls. The cold feels like someone turned off the sun too early. Wind whistles through the tent flaps like a ghost's wail. The guy next to you starts coughing. Another grinds his teeth. Someone farts. You don't know who, and you don't need to, just because you're enduring something worse than a fart. The ragged breathing of a stranger dreaming of death. You curl up, pull the tattered blanket to your chin, try to coax sleep, but it doesn't come. Not because of the noise, not because of the cold, but because a thought pounds in your head like a drum. I'm sleeping among 7 strangers, a pig, and a smell no language can describe, and I call this home. You open your eyes, look at the canvas above, see tiny holes, through them, a few stars. You once dreamed of stargazing in war, now you're doing it. But the tent's stench pulls you back to reality. Tomorrow you'll wake at 4 a.m. to learn how to attach a bayonet without stabbing your neck. But for now, you have one job: lie still, breathe slowly, and hope the pig doesn't step on your face while dreaming. Welcome to camp, where dreams are trampled in mud. A torn blanket is a reward, and 10 men and a pig try to forget the truth. This is just the beginning. You wake up before the sky fully brightens, the cold seeping through every tear in your ragged clothes, and the moldy wool blanket wrapped around you like a cocoon reeking of dampness. rat urine and rotting dreams. The sun hasn't risen, but the kitchen bell clangs like a chime from hell. Breakfast is ready. You jolt up, your spine creaking as if snapped in half, your feet still bearing the marks of sleeping next to the pig. It kicked you 3 times and made noises you never want to hear again. In an ideal world, breakfast is a time to recover. Steaming coffee, golden fried eggs, crispy toasted bread. In your real world, breakfast is a dry, hard, coarse biscuit that you suspect was designed more as a gravestone brick than food. Its official name is hardtack, but the camp calls it other names: gut brick, toothbreaker candy, the holy grail of diarrhea. You hold your first piece in your hand, pale grey like wall plaster, its surface pocked with 3 round holes to let it breathe, but also where maggots crawl in and out if left too long. And sure enough, on your biscuit, there's a small gouged mark and something brown wriggling out. You tap it lightly on a tent pole. It sounds like striking a pebble. The soldier next to you uses his dagger to split his biscuit in half, like chopping wood. Inside, there's still some raw dough. He dips it in cold tea to soften it. You don't have tea. You have yesterday's water from the creek where a dead horse floated. You take a breath, try to bite a piece. Your teeth make a clack. Your head goes numb from the effort. The biscuit doesn't break. You try another way, smash it against your knee. Mistake. Your knee hurts. The biscuit stays intact. Finally, you set it on the ground and stomp on it with your heel. A small crack appears. You pick up half, put it in your mouth, and let it sit like a sharpening stone. It softens slowly. The taste? A mix of dust, mold, and regret. No salt, no sugar, nothing. Just flour, water, and despair baked with the army's bitterness. Some luckier men get a piece of salt pork, but it's turned purple and gives off a smell that even the tent pig turns away from. Some try grilling it, hoping the smoke kills the bacteria, but the smoke only deepens the stench, like sprinkling fish sauce on pain. Others get coffee, but this coffee isn't coffee. It's a brownish-black powder, floating like engine sludge, served in a tin that smells of gunpowder. Someone jokes that if you lit a match, their coffee could explode. Everyone laughs, not because it's funny, but because if they didn't, they'd cry. You keep chewing. The hardtack breaks into tiny limestone-like pieces, lodging in your gums and cutting small gashes. Each swallow is a test of grit. You're not full, you're just less hungry. Slightly. Fullness in the camp doesn't come from food. It comes from your stomach giving up. And then, like a cruel end to the meal, a soldier holds up his biscuit, showing you it has rat teeth marks. No one reacts. You just ask, "Did it bite before or after me?" He replies, "Probably before, since I'm still alive." You laugh, but laughing doesn't ease the ache in your teeth. You burp, no smell, just cold air from the pit of your stomach. The sun's now above the horizon. The sergeant yells, "Line up, prepare for drills." You stand, rifle on your shoulder, a corner of the biscuit still uneaten. You tuck it into your pocket, like a survival treasure. After all, it's better than nothing. You don't know what lunch is, but it's definitely hard as stone. You step out of the tent, wind blowing across your face. Your stomach churns, your mouth is dry, and your heart beats like a funeral drum. And you think, this is a soldier's breakfast. A maggoty brick, a cup of kerosene-flavored coffee, and a long day waiting to die. But you also think, at least it hasn't killed me yet. And you keep walking, in hunger, in twisted humor, in the fake clarity only a piece of hardtack can bring. You're dreaming, a strange dream where you're no longer in the camp, no longer smelling wet armpits, no longer feeling the tight shoe rubbing the oozing blister on your heel. In the dream, you're sitting on your porch, your mother cooking cornbread, your father smoking a pipe in a wooden chair, and you feel peace. Then, boom, 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 a drumbeat like thunder shatters your dream into pieces. You bolt upright, head smacking the tent pole, teeth biting your tongue, blood seeping out, but there's no time to check. The drum keeps pounding into your heart, like a call from a graveyard. 4 a.m. Get up, not for breakfast, for war. The soldier next to you sits up, cursing like he's reciting scripture. Someone in the distance is already vomiting from the cold and last night's grey salt pork. The tent pig startles, grunting oink oink, like it just had a nightmare too. You don't have much time to wash your face. The water in the bucket, has a thin layer of ice. You scoop a handful, splash it on your face, and it feels like someone slapped you with a block of ice. Your teeth chatter, your ears ring, the pulse behind your neck throbs. But it's fine. You're alive. That's the bare minimum for a morning in the army. You throw on your jacket, the mismatched shoes, making you walk like someone with a broken hip. Everyone in the formation stands in a wobbly line, shoulders hunched, eyes red, like they drank a lake of pan-wash coffee. The sergeant storms by, yelling like a mad bull forced into a pen. Load, aim, fix bayonets. His voice echoes like a death knell. You fumble with your rifle, frozen fingers, unable to open the cartridge box. The guy next to you drops a bullet in the mud. No one waits for him to pick it up. The sergeant yells again, soldiers slower than a lame turtle. You don't know if lame turtles exist, but you don't have the mind to wonder. And so the drill begins. No coffee, no bread, no warm blankets, or soft pillows. Just rifles, shouts, and your body wrestling with hunger and bone-chilling cold. First move, attach the bayonet to the barrel. The click sounds like locking your bedroom door back home. You remember your bed, your old blanket, your worn leather slippers. Then you're yanked back to reality by a shout. Advance, thrust, withdraw, thrust, withdraw. Hundreds of soldiers swing rifles like they're executing the air, bayonets slicing through with a whoosh. Someone misses, nearly stabbing you. Another up front carelessly swings too hard, his bayonet slashing his own arm. Blood sprays. A cry of "ah" rings out, but no one stops. The sergeant says, "Good, blood proves you're alive." That chills you more than the wind. After the drill, the unit rests for 5 minutes. No one talks. Everyone breathes like exhausted oxen. Sweat steams in the cold, forming wispy clouds like souls leaving bodies. A soldier sits, pulls a piece of hardtack from his pocket, and gnaws it like a bone. You don't eat. Your mouth still tastes of blood from biting your tongue when you woke. You sit there, watching the sun slowly rise above the distant trees. It's the only moment of the day when everything quiets. A few fleeting seconds without shouts, rifles, or shoes rubbing wounds. Then the drum sounds again. This time, it's the call to the firing range. You stand, rifle on your shoulder, legs trembling, stomach empty as a punctured tin. And you think, the army's drum never wakes you to live. It only wakes you to prepare to die, slowly, precisely, with discipline. You walk with the others, like a slow-moving stream, toward a place where no one promises to return. And you know, as long as you hear the drum, you have to get up. Not to eat breakfast, but to try not to be the one dragged away by evening. Of all the horrors you've endured since being thrown into the army, mismatched shoes, rock-hard biscuits, a tent packed with men, and a sleep-talking pig, you still naively believed that at least relieving yourself would be a private, quiet, and at least humane moment. But then you discover the army has no room for privacy, and even less for decent latrines. On your first morning in camp, after the relentless 4 a.m. shouts and drills, swinging rifles like killing the wind, your stomach churns. It's not hunger, it's a warning from within, now or never. You ask a veteran soldier, "Where's the latrine?" He laughs, a toothless grin, then points into the distance. "See those stakes in the ground, in that empty lot? That's it." You look. Nothing resembles a house. Nothing resembles a latrine. Just a long, wide pit, barely shallow enough to not swallow you whole, if you're careless, surrounded by wobbly wooden stakes and a canvas sheet hanging crookedly, like a curtain torn by a dog. You walk over, clutching your stomach, hoping for at least a plank to sit on. No, welcome to the latrine, or as it's known, the pit of despair. No seat, no platform. You have to squat, and squatting over a pit full of mud, flies, and bubbling sounds from strange things fermenting below is a test of both body and faith. You lower yourself, and the smell hits. The stench of hundreds of men, from hundreds of awful meals, mixed with bacteria, flies, and mold. You try breathing through your mouth. Mistake. The taste floods your throat, like someone dumped a pot of boiled old socks in your face. Next to you, a soldier squats, staring blankly into space, as if his soul has left his body. As you try to focus, a light breeze blows, the privacy canvas smacking your head like a reminder. Nothing here is private. Flies buzz around your ears, your face, then instinctively land right on your backside. You swat. They come back. You swat harder. They still come back. You nearly cry. And then, when you think it can't get worse, you hear footsteps. Another group of soldiers approaching. No one waits. No one queues. They circle the pit like wild dogs claiming a spot, squatting wherever they can, regardless of your very vulnerable position. You shrink, minimizing your presence, eyes fixed on the pit, like staring into an abyss. And it truly is an abyss. One where you know for sure there are things worse than death. The bottom is where all hope settles and rots over time. You finish. No paper. You ask the guy next to you. He tosses you a handful of straw. You look at the straw, then your hand, then the straw again. You choose the straw. It's dry. It scratches, but it's better than nothing. When you stand, your foot slips slightly on the soft ground. Your heart leaps to your throat, but you keep your balance. You swear you'll never eat salt pork again, because that smell in the pit is what it becomes 48 hours later. You leave the pit, not looking back. Some slip, some fall in, some are never named again, but you survived. For now, you think it's just today, but no, this is the official design. Every morning, every afternoon, every night, if your stomach still works, you'll return to that hellish pit. And the bad news? It's not always in the same spot. When it rains, the pit overflows. When it overflows, sewage spreads through the camp. When it spreads, your tent gets wet. When the tent's wet, your shoes are wet. When your shoes are wet, your feet rot, and from there disease begins. The sergeant says, don't let your feet rot, stay hygienic. You look at him, wanting to ask with what, but you bite your tongue, because your tongue is worth more than words right now. You learn to go when it's quiet, at dawn or pitch dark. You pick the farthest pit. You bring straw, if you have it. You take a deep breath, then hold it. You become an expert at surviving the most dangerous game, avoiding a fall into a place where even earthworms want to commit suicide. One day, you hear about a soldier badly injured, not by bullets, but by being stabbed by a rotten steak near the pit when he slipped. Death by latrine, a death not in history books, but a reality for thousands. And then you understand in war, bullets don't kill the fastest. Shit does, or more precisely, the thing that holds it. You return to the tent, cold sweat drenching your back. The guy next to you asks, "You okay?" You reply, "I'm alive." He nods. You both fall silent, because sometimes surviving a trip to the latrine is worth celebrating. But there's no whiskey, just scummy creek water and a piece of hardtack. You sit, chew the biscuit, and pray your digestive system doesn't betray you again. Until that day, you still hadn't truly grasped what war meant. Though you'd slept with a rifle, eaten maggoty biscuits, waded through a creek with a floating horse carcass, and squatted over a public pit, where every trip was a gamble with your life, all that was still in the grey zone of suffering, a kind of suffering you could complain about, curse at, or push through if you gritted your teeth, and were stubborn enough. But that morning, when the sergeant ordered move to the front line, you knew something was about to change. Not the kind of change like the new camp will have real toilets, but a permanent change, the kind that makes your brain erase the last comforting images you had left. You're marched toward the sound of gunfire. At first, it's sporadic, small pops echoing from a distance, like muffled festival firecrackers. But the closer you get, the louder it grows. And then, buh, oh, a mam, a deafening roar, long and tearing, like the sky was ripped in two. You instinctively duck, head diving into the dirt, hands clutching your hat, as if it could save you from fate. No one told you to do it. Your body decided. A soldier next to you shouts, "Cannon." They've started, and you realize this isn't the sound of gunfire from textbooks. It's nothing like you've ever heard. It's the sound of metal screaming through the air, the ground shaking, the blind and indifferent approach of death. Your heart pounds like a war drum, not steady, not rhythmic, but chaotic and fierce, like it's trying to escape your chest before you're torn apart. The first cannonball lands 200 meters from your unit. The second, 80 meters. The third, someone screams. Someone's hit. You turn your head. You shouldn't, but you do. A body lies there, Not whole, not human anymore. Shredded cloth flutters where a chest used to be. No cries, no groans, just silence. And you realize that person stood next to you during morning roll call. A nameless nobody. Not glorious, not heroic. Now lying there, like a discarded sack of meat. Your mouth goes dry. Your hands shake so hard, you can't hold your rifle. The unit is ordered to scatter and move into the woods. As you run, you hear a long whistle. Not wind, bullets. A cannonball whizzes over your head like a giant metal bee, dragging a scream of torn air. Coo, whoosh, and boom. The next blast rips apart a tree just steps away. You slip and fall. You don't know if it's the slick ground or your knees giving out. You lie face down in the mud, cold wetness soaking your back. Your heart no longer beating logically. It jerks like a frog, shocked with electricity. Your eyes are wide open, but you see nothing. Your ears ring. Every sound after that feels drowned in a pool of water. The sergeant shouts, your comrades yells, the groans, all muffled, in a world where the only thing alive is panic. You try to stand, legs trembling. Another soldier grabs your shoulder, pulls you behind a tree, shouting something. You can't hear. You just see his eyes, wide and white, mirroring you. Those aren't human eyes anymore. They're the eyes of a cornered animal. You sit behind the tree, clutching your rifle to your chest, like it's your mother. Another round flies by. Boom. This time, dirt sprays your face, your hair, your mouth. The smell of gunpowder mixes with mud, mixes with blood from someone nearby. You can't tell one taste from another. An hour later, the cannon fire slows. The barrage ends. No one explains why. Maybe the enemy ran out of ammo. Maybe they're adjusting coordinates. Maybe they're waiting for you to show your face. You don't care. You just know that in 60 minutes, you aged 60 years. When the assemble order comes, you stand like a corpse propped up by strings. Your pants are wet. You don't know if it's sweat, mud, or piss. Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. Just your body no longer in control when cannonballs scream overhead. The sergeant yells, stand straight, eyes up. You try to lift your head. In front of you is another soldier's body, hands still clutching his hat, eyes wide open. You see yourself in them, not now, but a very near future. You step over him, like stepping over yourself, then fall in line. No one says anything. No one needs to. The first time you heard cannon fire, and it took something from you. Not blood, not flesh, but the last shred of innocence. From now on, you're no longer a rookie. You're a real soldier, a survivor, waiting for your turn, and you know your heart will never beat the same again, because part of it was left on the battlefield today. You no longer remember how far you've gone from where the cannonballs fell this morning. Everything's the same. Mud, trees, fog, and the smell of gunpowder clinging to your skin like a war tattoo. The sun climbs high, your stomach screaming with sharp pains like the cries of a starving child. You're hungry, so hungry, your guts feel like they're eating themselves. And then, like a cruel joke, the whistle for mealtime shrieks, a long piercing wail like the scream of despair. Someone shouts, lunchtime, their voice not excited, not joyful, just a mechanical utterance, like the last working part in a depleted body. You sit under a tree, back against its rough, moldy bark, pulling out your lunch ration, a piece of salt pork turned an odd reddish brown, and a chunk of biscuit, hard as lime and cement. You don't ask what the meat is. You just hope it's not human. At least you hope. You take a small bite when a frantic shout comes from the group ahead. Someone's dead at the camp's edge. You don't want to go, but your feet stand on their own. Curiosity, fear, instinct, or all at once. You follow the crowd, and then you see. He's lying there, a young soldier, your age, uniform tattered, blood covering his chest and arms. But his head is gone, gone. Not pierced by a bullet, not slashed, but completely missing, as if an invisible monster swooped in, snatched his head, and vanished, leaving the rest like a broken toy. His neck is a jagged streak of red flesh, the wound gaping like an unanswered question. No head anywhere. Maybe it was blasted away by this morning's cannon. Maybe a wild animal dragged it off. Maybe it's still nearby, in some bush, waiting for someone to stumble over it. Another soldier steps close, carefully searching the dead man's pockets, not to steal, but to find papers, a name, something to answer if anyone asks. Who was he? But the pockets are empty. No name, no letter, no identification, no family photo, just a blood-soaked handkerchief and a spoon. A few soldiers stand silently. Another turns away and vomits against a tree. You don't. You just stand, staring at the headless body, then feel your stomach twist, not from disgust, from hunger. And that's when you realize you still have to eat lunch, because if you don't, you'll faint, and fainting here means dying. You return to your tree, where the biscuit still sits quietly on your canteen lid, as if no one ever lost their head. You sit, your hands shake, your mouth is dry, but you still bring the biscuit to your lips. Chew, swallow, no taste, no feeling. You don't know what you're eating anymore, just that you need to live a few more hours. Each bite is a slap to what's left of your humanity. Each swallow confirms you're getting used to death. The soldier next to you, the one who vomited, is eating now too. His face pale, lips trembling, but he chews like a survival machine. He says softly, almost a whisper, "I was talking to him yesterday." You nod, not answering, because you don't want to open your mouth, afraid the salt pork will slip out with a scream you can't control. Someone from logistics passes by, saying casually, "We might march again this afternoon. More artillery coming." You look at the sky. A flock of crows circles in the distance. You don't know if they're hunting or mourning, and you think, in a scrap of consciousness left in your worn-out body, "I just saw a headless man and still have to eat lunch. Not because I'm strong, not because I'm used to it, but because I have no choice." War doesn't stop for you to cry. It only stops when you no longer have teeth to chew. And you still have a few, at least for today. You once thought the worst enemy on the battlefield would be a bullet through the heart or a bayonet to the gut. But no, not the cannons, not the enemy, not the traps lurking in the blood-soaked jungle. What's slowly killing you is a dry cough, starting somewhere deep in your throat, spreading to your chest, then surging up like the roar of a trapped beast, trying to claw its way out of your lungs. At first, you thought probably just a cold, but 3 days later, you can't sleep for coughing. You cough until blood seeps from your lips. Every time you strain to breathe, your chest tightens, as if someone's wrapping a rope around your ribs and pulling. It all started with the damp cold of the camp. You wear a burlap jacket soaked with rain, sleep on wet ground, and the wind slips through the tent like it's a high-ranking officer with the right to torment soldiers. The first night, you coughed a few times. The second night, you sat up in the dark, coughing so hard your heart felt like it would burst through your ribs. The third night, you broke down, not from pain, but from exhaustion. Not being able to take a full breath is its own kind of torture, slow and invisible, but worse than any visible wound. The soldier next to you says, without looking at you, "Don't let the nurses see you cough too much. They might report you. You'll be sent to isolation." You turn, "Isolation?" He replies, "They take you to a quarantine tent. Worse than hell. Moldy canvas. 20 men in a row. No blankets. No doctor. If you die, someone buries you. If not, you lie there, waiting. You try to cough quieter, but you can't. The cough comes like a tsunami, unannounced, merciless. You clench your teeth, clutch your chest, try to swallow it back, but something in your chest has spoken, an invisible pathogen, a killer that needs no gun. The next morning, you go to the field hospital, hoping for something, but it's a tent reeking of phenol and dried blood, with an old man wearing slipping glasses, using the same knife to cut bandages and peel apples. He looks at you through cloudy eyes, listens to you cough a few times, then says, "Mild pneumonia. Take this." You get a black-green pill, no label, no instructions. You swallow. Half an hour later, you vomit, and then you cough again. The days after, you keep coughing, keep fevering, keep trembling. Every morning, you check if you can still breathe. If you can, good, you're alive. If not, well. The sergeant says, anyone too weak to march stays behind. You grip your rifle, stand up, not because you're strong, but because you know, staying behind is being left behind, and being left behind, in war, is being discarded. On the march, you look around, see others coughing too. Some cover their mouths with torn rags, some don't bother, some cough up blood, wipe it on their sleeves, and keep walking. The smell of the sick is different from normal sweat. It carries a metallic tang, a rot, something dying inside that hasn't yet surfaced. The soldier from the next tent died this morning. He coughed all night, then didn't wake up. No one cried. 2 men came to drag his body away. A pit was already dug behind the camp. No headstone, no name, just a mound of dirt quickly filled, like plastering over a crack. You don't ask his name. He didn't ask yours, because here everyone knows asking names is a way to invite pain. Sooner or later, you'll have to bury that name. You sit under a tree, sip cloudy creek water, and cough. The cough lasts so long you clutch your stomach from the pain. Your eyes water, your mouth bleeds, and you think, if someone asked what makes you want to die most on the battlefield, it wouldn't be guns, not knives, not bombs, but your own breath, betraying you day by day. In unwritten diaries, on unmarked graves, the truth remains. Disease kills more than bullets. And you're standing in its queue. Each cough is a step closer to the pit behind the camp. And the bitterest part, you still don't have a name for someone to remember if you fall. When you're dragged into the field hospital that morning, after 3 nights of coughing like your lungs have turned to liquid, you don't expect much. You're used to the fact that every medical care in camp is a brutal game of chance. If you don't die right away, you try to sleep through the fever. If you do, they bury you with at least a cloth cap over your face. So when you're laid on a pus-stained burlap sheet, next to 2 men delirious with fever and 1 groaning from losing 2 toes to frostbite, you just think, this is probably where I wait to die. But then, a tall shadow steps in. He's not wearing a lab coat, no stethoscope, nothing that says nurse. He's in a singed sleeve old shirt, hands big as frying pans and calloused, with a checkered scarf around his neck, like a reminder of a kinder life. And he says, "I'm Micah. I used to be a blacksmith." No one reacts. You're coughing too hard to hear the full greeting. He sits beside you, carefully wiping your face with a cloth, dipped in water from a tin bucket. The water's cool, the cloth's rough. But those hands, rough hands that once swung a hammer on red-hot iron, wipe your face with a gentleness that stuns you. He doesn't ask your name, doesn't ask, "How do you feel?" He places a hand on your chest, listens to your breathing. His face is expressionless, but his eyes are focused, like he's hearing a machine about to break. Your chest rattles like a leaky bellows, he says, then stands, walking to the back of the tent. He returns with a small jug of water, a pinch of some herb smelling like rotten grass, and a cloth rolled like a Stone Age syringe. You look at him, wanting to ask, will it help? But you don't need to, because you know in camp, treatment isn't about healing, it's about surviving another day. Micah mixes the herbs in hot water, props you up, and places the tin cup in your hands. You hold it, trembling. He steadies your shoulder and says, "Small sips, don't rush, it's bitterer than the truth." You drink, it's bitter, like swallowing fireplace ash, mixed with tears too. But the second sip warms you. The third, your chest breathes a little easier. Micah tucks a straw-stuffed sack under your back. Then he dips the cloth, wipes your sweat again. When he's done, he just says, "Now sleep. Don't worry, I showed horses for General Grant. Fixed broken legs then. Lungs aren't that different." You try to smile, but your mouth's too dry. You nod, then close your eyes. Whether it's the medicine, exhaustion, or that rough blacksmith's hand gently on your shoulder before he stands, you sleep. For the first time in days, when you wake, it's dark. Micah's still there, bandaging another soldier's foot with a strip torn from his own shirt. The man groans. Micah doesn't comfort him, but he ties it tight, then says, "You'll walk tomorrow. Not dead yet." He doesn't save everyone. A young man died in his arms that afternoon, coughing blood non-stop. Micah closed his eyes, placed a hand on his forehead, then turned away. No tears, but his shoulders sagged, heavy as his old blacksmith's hammer. When you're awake enough to sit up, he brings you another cup of herb water. You ask, "Where'd you learn medicine?" He laughs. "Didn't just know forging. Forged horse, shoes, knives, wagons, now forging lives." You don't know what to say. Thank you feels absurd. Sorry feels wrong. So you just drink. And then you realize, amid a war where everyone loses their name, home, hope, sometimes what saves you isn't a doctor, medicine, or God. It's a man who once hammered in a forge, now using those same hands to pull you back from death's grip. And you think, if I survive this week, it might be because of a man who's not a nurse, but a blacksmith. One damp afternoon, like every other, wind cutting through the canvas, the smell of wet socks mixing with earth and stale gunpowder, something strange ripples through the camp. Not an order, not a drum calling to the drill ground, not the cough of someone dying, but a frantic shout from a logistics guy, mail from home. You look up. Your hand holds a moldy biscuit scrap, the last one. Your mouth's dry, your palms speckled with dried blood from morning coughs. But you stand, as if part of your brain still remembers something called home. The camp stirs. Names are called out, one by one, scattered, lost, like summoning ghosts. Thompson, Jenkins, Morales, O'Donnell, your turn. They call your name right. They, somewhere far away, still remember you exist. You get a crumpled envelope, one corner wet, smudged with soot. The handwriting's crooked, but it's your mother's. You haven't seen her script in 3 months. You sit, try to open the envelope without trembling, and when the paper unfolds, you smell something faint, almost imagined, old soap, a kitchen fire, or maybe just time not yet swallowed by war. The letter's short, a few shaky lines. Your father's fine. The potato crop's light this season. The neighbor's boy has a cough. Sounds like some plague. The cat had 3 kittens, one striped like you liked as a kid. Don't worry, I'm fine. Miss you. No mention of your sweetheart. She didn't write. You're not surprised. She said she'd wait. But you've waited days, months. Now you don't have the strength to wait for anyone but your next cough. You fold the letter, tuck it in your chest pocket, near your heart, where you meant to keep the photo of her taken with you before you left. That photo you burned in the 2nd week, because it was raining and the wood was wet. You think, where's the smell of home? But then you smell something else. Mud. The stubborn smell clinging to everything you touch. Shoes, blanket, rifle, food, dreams. The smell of rotting mud, slimy mud, muddy gruel, mud coating you like a second skin. You used to dread it, now it's part of you. You take a deep breath, not to remember home, but to remember at least this mud smell is real. Your sweetheart's isn't. You can't recall the scent of her hair anymore, can't picture her laugh. You only remember other sounds, the groan of a soldier shot in the gut, the pig in the tent squealing in a rainy night, your teeth grinding during a fever. Your mother's letter mentions the smell of early season wind, burning wood, earth after rain, scents you loved. But now they're just words. So the smells you know are the gunpowder from yesterday's barrage, lingering in your sleeve. The wet shoes that haven't dried in 3 weeks. The smell of a dead man's hand as you searched his wallet for a tag to bury him properly. You close your eyes. In your mind, no hometown meadows, no mother's call, no sweetheart waving at the village gate. Just a black void, lumpy with mud and blood. You open your eyes, see the soldier next to you reading his letter. He smiles, the first smile you've seen in camp all week. You're happy for him, but you don't smile. There's no room in your heart for love letters, only for the herbal medicine the blacksmith Micah gave you. You pull out your mother's letter again, not to read, but to cover your eyes. The sunlight through the tent flap is too harsh. You lie on your side, and before drifting off amid the lonely coughs and the wind, you think, I miss the smell of mud more than my sweetheart. And if war doesn't kill me, that truth will. By day, war kills with bullets. By night, it kills with memories. When the sun sets and the camp sinks into darkness, no lamps, no light, but the faint glow of half-smoked cigarettes, you think you'll finally rest. But the night in a soldier's camp is never quiet. As you try to burrow into a damp blanket reeking of mold and sweat, as you curl up to hold on to the last bit of warmth after an exhausting march, as you close your eyes hoping for deep sleep, the groans begin. At first, they're sporadic, a long dry cough from the tent's far end, then the grinding teeth of someone feverish, then a sob. You open your eyes. You don't know who, no one speaks, but someone's crying, not loud crying, a wet, stifled sound trapped behind a blanket, caught in a throat, as if letting it out would shatter it into 1,000 pieces. You turn your head, peering through the thick darkness like ash covering everything. Everyone's lying down, everyone's silent. But you know, tonight, there'll be no sleep. The groans continue, not loud, but persistent, from another corner. Someone murmurs in their sleep. Don't. No more. Mom. Don't let me go. Your spine chills. Not because they're dreaming, but because they're awake, and those whispers aren't for anyone here. They're sent to the past, to a place where war hasn't yet stolen hearts and minds. The rustle of blankets dragged across the ground, the shifting of bodies, the faint crackle of dying fires, the coughs, all blend into a silent symphony of suppressed pain. Then, suddenly, a scream. You jump. Someone bolts upright in the tent, arms flailing like slashing the air, shouting, "It's still alive. It's crawling. Get away." Everyone wakes. No one speaks. A burly soldier lunges, pins the frantic man down, whispering in his ear, "It's okay. You're fine. You're not there anymore. It's okay." The man struggles a few seconds, then goes limp like an empty husk. The tent falls silent again, but you can't sleep anymore. Your eyes are glued to the canvas ceiling. Your ears catch every tiny sound, the scurry of a rat's feet, the wind whistling through the tent flap, the heavy breathing of the man beside you, the smell of dried blood still lingering on your shirt. Maybe the worst isn't those sounds. It's the ones in your head, the headless man, the friend who fell without a sound, the cannon tearing the sky, and your heart at once. They echo every time you close your eyes, and you hate closing your eyes. Outside the tent, the air turns cold. Fog seeps in like ghostly smoke. Someone starts groaning softly, maybe from fever. Another trembles uncontrollably. You try to burrow deeper into your blanket, but the cold doesn't come from the wind. It comes from the thought, tomorrow, someone won't wake up, and it might be you. Then, a soft sound near your ear. The pig, still here, breathing. It's the only creature in the tent, not groaning, not coughing, not dreaming of corpses. It just lies there, curled up, snuffling. You envy it. You think, if only I were a pig. No memories, no dreams, no understanding. Just eat, sleep, and oink. But you're not a pig. You're a soldier, and soldiers must listen. Hear everything. Remember everything. Live with everything. Another cry rises, this time from a young voice. A recruit, maybe not even 17, sniffling in the dark. No one speaks, no one comforts, because everyone knows, tomorrow, it's their turn. And then, like a strange reflex, you start to groan, softly, not audible, just a sound slipping from your throat, between breath and memory. You don't call for your mother. You don't call anyone's name. You groan because you're still alive, and living here, among the groans, is a form of slow death. You close your eyes, you hear everything, and you understand the night in a soldier's camp isn't for sleeping, it's for remembering you're not yet mad, but you're no longer normal either. You drift off, not quite asleep, not quite awake. In the darkness, the groans continue, like the heartbeat of war, and you know when those sounds stop, that's when it's truly terrifying, because then, no one's left alive to groan. You once thought that facing death, you'd tremble, cry, or vomit. But after 6 weeks on the front line, after sleeping beside feverish men, sharing spoons with those who stopped breathing the next day, after digging graves for friends whose names you hadn't learned, your body somehow stops feeling fear. Not because you've overcome it, but because it's worn down, like your shoes, now just tattered cloth, clinging to blistered feet. And then that morning, you see yet another corpse. A soldier, knees blown apart by artillery, eyes still open, mouth agape as if saying, "It doesn't hurt." His body's caught between two oaks, one arm torn off, and lying a few meters away, next to an uneaten biscuit scrap. And you laugh. Not a loud laugh, a huff from your throat, then a soft chuckle. Then you shake with laughter. You laugh so hard you double over, clutching your stomach, tears streaming, not sure if from emotion or the pain of a starved gut. The soldier beside you sees. He says nothing, but you catch his look. Not fear, but worry. Not for you, but for himself. Because he just realized you've slipped off the edge where sanity once held. Minutes later, another approaches. He asks, "What's so funny?" You don't know how to answer, because nothing's funny, and everything's funny. It's absurd that a man missing half his body lies next to an untouched meal. Absurd that someone singing, Yankee Doodle yesterday is now a black bruise in the bushes. Absurd that you must wipe blood off your hands before eating, but there's no soap, and most absurd, you're still alive. Regardless, you shut your mouth, stand, and adjust your belt. The sergeant won't halt the unit for your strange laugh. But that afternoon, you're called aside. A camp officer asks, "Heard you laughed at a dead soldier." You nod. He nods back. Slowly, no one laughs. He doesn't scold, just asks, "You sleeping?" You shake your head. "Nightmares." You nod. "Ever seen a psychiatrist?" You don't answer. Because in camp, the closest thing to psychiatry is a wooden stick to knock sense into someone delirious. He sighs, then says, "You're not the first, but don't let others see." Laughter spreads like cholera, and soldiers laughing at death. It's a sign the camp's rotting from within. He doesn't continue. But you understand, they fear madness more than death, because madness breaks order, and if too many start laughing like you, the army can't control itself. That night, you don't sleep. You try not to think of the laugh, but it comes back, soft, faint, crawling from somewhere in your chest, like a trembling needle in a storm. You bury your face in your pillow, or rather, the damp, coarse cloth called a pillow, and gasp, not from exhaustion, but from fear of your own laughter. And for the first time in days, you don't fear bullets, not disease, not the enemy, but yourself. Because you start to understand when horror exceeds its limit, the brain doesn't cry, it laughs. And when you laugh, not from joy, you're no longer you. Just a creature in a uniform, stumbling through mud, wind and body parts, laughing because there's nothing left to lose. And when you lose, it's light. But that's when you're more dangerous than ever. You once believed the enemy wore a different colored uniform, that he was across the battle line, with a different flag, different gun, different voice. But after weeks living in mud, coughing in fog, and burying nameless bodies, you start to grasp something more terrifying. The enemy isn't always from far away. Sometimes, he's a blanket's distance away, sharing your biscuit ration, sleeping right beside you. You begin to sense it in small things, like when your food ration keeps going missing, despite hiding it carefully. Like when your drying shoes are moved and get wet again. Like when the small knife you always kept in your coat pocket disappears. At first, you think it's a mistake. In camp, everyone's tired, hungry, desperate. Who doesn't forget, grab the wrong thing, or make small errors? But then, one night, you wake to a soft rustling in the tent's corner. Moonlight filters through a slit in the canvas, faintly illuminating a figure rifling through another soldier's bag. You hold your breath. The figure's hand pulls out a piece of dried meat, stuffs it in his coat, and slips back to his spot. No one shouts, no one says anything, because everyone sees, but everyone pretends not to. In a soldier's camp, there are three things you never lose: your rifle, your food, and your trust. And when trust is gone, no one's a comrade, just creatures in uniforms, surviving, even if it means trampling each other. The next day, the soldier who lost his food looks around the tent, face pale. He whispers, "I know who took it," but he bows his head, does nothing, doesn't dare. Because in the unit, the unwritten law is clear. Accusing someone invites disaster on yourself. The accused isn't disciplined, he's cornered. And the accuser doesn't live easy either. A week later, during a pouring rain when the camp moves to a new site, that soldier's body is found at the camp's edge, neck strangled with a rifle strap, face down in a shallow puddle. The official report says, fell during movement, accident. But you know better. Everyone knows better. Accidents don't tie neat knots. The thief's still there, still eating his share, still laughing, still coughing like the rest. But from that day, no one turns their back while sleeping. No one leaves their rifle too far. No one trusts anyone. One night, someone in the tent screams, "Who kicked my face?" No one answers. The next morning he's gone. No papers, no pack, no body. Some say he deserted. Some say he was pushed into the river. Some, like you, say nothing, because you know silence is the last armor left between you and the complete rot of human hearts. Micah, the blacksmith turned nurse, once said, while bandaging your wound, "What drives men mad isn't enemy fire, but not knowing who the enemy is anymore." You get his meaning. When the line between friend and foe, comrade and enemy, is just a piece of dried meat, a dry pair of shoes, or a warm blanket, there's no battle line anymore. Just survival. The sergeant didn't teach you that. The training manual didn't write it. But the setting sun reminds you daily. Danger isn't just from cannon fire, it's from the soft footsteps behind you while you sleep. You start memorizing every face in the tent. Who looks around when others bow to eat? Who coughs little, but takes extra medicine? Who has eyes slick as wet wood, reflecting nothing, holding nothing? And who smiles when someone loses something? You don't conclude, but you start tying your rifle strap to your wrist at night. You hide your biscuit in your pant leg. You keep your knife under your shirt, near your heart. Not because you've lost trust, but because you've learned its true nature. Trust only matters when the person beside you isn't hungry. And in this camp, everyone's hungry. Hungry for food, hungry for life, hungry enough that if you stumble, the shadow behind you won't catch you. It'll take your shoes before you hit the ground. If you're a white soldier, you might die from a bullet, from disease, from a bayonet through the gut, or from your head being blown off while you sleep, and at least afterward your name has a chance of being recorded, maybe in a casualty list, a unit's notebook, a report sent home. Maybe someone will set up a thin wooden cross on your shallow grave, with your name scrawled in charcoal. But if you're a black soldier in the American Civil War, your death isn't for remembrance. Your death is to prove you were allowed to die for a country unsure it wants you to live. You have no rank, no proper training. You don't sleep in a sheltered camp, but in a makeshift enclosure of torn canvas behind the main barracks. And when rations are handed out, you're last in line, after even the pig. Once you got exactly 3 broken pieces of hardtack and half a handful of spoiled beans. The white soldier beside you chews salt pork, not looking at you. He doesn't despise you. He doesn't pity you. He just doesn't see you. That's pure invisibility. You live like a shadow, and if you die, no one calls you brother or comrade. They just say another one, and mark a short line in a ledger, a slash, no name, no hometown, no letter sent back, because no one knows who to send it to. The day you volunteered, a white man wrote your name with sloppy handwriting, asked curtly, "What's your name?" then got your surname and hometown wrong. You didn't dare correct him. You just needed a rifle and a cap to prove your skin can bleed for a flag tearing in the wind. But the rifle you're given is old, rusted, missing the bayonet catch. During shooting drills, you have no target. You aim at a tree marked with chalk. When you miss, the white sergeant says, "Good, if you die, I won't have to fix that gun." Your first night in camp, you sleep by the horse stable, not for lack of space, but because the commander said, let them sleep near what they're used to smelling. And you listen. You don't react. You say nothing, because you can't. Speaking is reacting, and reacting for a black man means dying while still alive. When the first battle comes, you're pushed to the front, not because you're better, but because you're worth less than the rest. The unit's saying is, if we lose men, lose the black ones first. Once, you saw a wounded black soldier crying for help under artillery fire. No one came. The sergeant said, if he lives, he'll crawl back. If he dies, no need to carry him. He died. You didn't cry. Your tears dried up when you left the home where your father was hanged for looking at a white man passing by. Another day, while digging trenches with other black soldiers, you found human bones in the dirt. Someone buried without a marker. You don't know their name, but instinct tells you it was someone like you, someone who didn't count, only buried. You whisper, "I see you," then keep shoveling. You can't stop. You can't remember. You can't let emotion show on your face, because you're a black soldier, and black soldiers aren't allowed an inner life. During a head count, the sergeant once said, "Missing 2, oh probably the black ones. Cross them off to keep it simple." No one objects. No one mentions it again. 2 deaths erased like clearing inventory. You hear, your heart tightens, but your face stays blank, because if you react, you'll be the 3rd one, crossed off. On a freezing evening, as everyone huddles in blankets, you see a black comrade coughing violently. He's feverish. No one gives him medicine. No one gives him water. They say, "Don't waste it." he won't make it. And sure enough, by morning, he's cold. You and another wrap his body in an old blanket and dig a hole. No ceremony, no Bible, just a nod and a grunt from the overseer. The next day, the commander tells his superior, "Lost one last night, no need to investigate, no papers," and another slash in the death ledger. You live among those slashes and know that one day you'll be one of them. No name, no flowers, no one later knowing you had a face, could sing, wrote in cursive, or remembered the smell of your mother's sweat after a day picking cotton. But one thing keeps you standing, keeps you holding your rifle, keeps you marching, keeps you coughing, without collapsing. You know you're dying for something bigger than yourself. You die to prove you exist. That one day, when someone looks at those ledger slashes, they'll ask, who were they? And another will say, they were the ones who didn't count, but mattered more than all. A night in the trench is unlike any night you've ever known. It doesn't start with sunset, but with the slosh of wading through cold mud and the stench of human waste rising from a low corner where water reaches your ankles. No mattress, no pillow, no stars or moon, just a long, flooded, cramped, pitch-black ditch where you and 6 others are tossed like green logs waiting to burn. They say, hold the position, but they don't say that position is a miniature hell with limits, borders, and rats the size of cats. You step into the trench, your canvas shoes soaking instantly, cold as stone against your skin. You try not to wince as mud, and something soft and slimy seeps between your toes. You sit, back against the earth wall, damp, sticky, trembling. A soldier beside you whispers, "Don't lean too close, the wall's about to collapse." You shift away, but there's nowhere to go. Everything's the same, wet, tight, filthy, and so dark you start doubting your eyes work. Above you is the night sky, but not the sky you knew. A thick black dome where flares might flash any moment, bringing cannons, whistling bullets, or death. You sit, legs curled like a caged animal, and no one speaks. Because after the sergeants stay silent, everyone knows one cough could end this whole trench. And then the scratching starts. From behind, from the darkest corner, tiny claws scraping on rotten wood, faint squeaks, water splashing. You glance over your shoulder, see nothing, but you know, rats. Rats as big as your calf, thriving on dead flesh, gnawing corpses, and keeping time like a biological clock. At first, they avoided people. Now they don't. They bite toes if you sleep. A soldier yesterday woke with blood seeping from his boot. You asked, "Does it hurt?" He just said, "No, my foot's numb. I woke because I heard chewing." You pull your feet up, tuck them under, trying to keep them warm and away from the gnaws. But soon, you go numb. Knees harden like stone, chest so cold each breath stabs. A drop of water from somewhere lands on your forehead. You don't wipe it, no strength to lift your hand. You sit, silently dissolving, cell by cell, then another squeak. Not rats, bullets. Someone whispers, "Duck," and everyone presses their heads down. You hear bullets hit the trench wall behind. Dirt dust falls on your hair. Pebbles strike your neck. You don't react, just exhale, softly, very softly, as if you're starting to vanish, melting into the muddy trench, becoming an extension of it. Time loses meaning. You don't know how long you've sat there. An hour? 3? All night? Feel nothing but water, mud, cold, and faint spasms in your lungs. You were once human, had a name, an age, parents, a girlfriend who wrote letters, whose name you've now forgotten. But now, you're just a living lump of flesh. No smell, no feeling, no identity. A soldier beside you mutters, "Are we still human?" No one answers, because everyone's asking the same. A third rat scurries across your foot. This time, you don't flinch, don't shoo it. It pauses by your boot, sniffs, then moves on. You look at it, eyes blank, like seeing an old friend whose name you've forgotten. As dawn nears, the sky stays dark. No sunrise, just the pale grey of drizzle and fog clinging to your hat's brim. You stand, feet so numb, you can't tell ground from bone. A soldier has fainted. They pull him from the trench like a wet sack of rice. Maybe he's dead, maybe alive. No one checks, because everyone's the same. Half human, half corpse. You leave the trench, walk on unfeeling feet, and look back. What you see isn't shelter. It's the maw of a giant beast, spitting you out to chew again later. And you think, A night in the trench doesn't kill you. It just erases you from yourself. And when you no longer know who you are, death is just the final paperwork. At first, you dreamed normal things. If anything here can be called normal. You dreamed of eating, but the meat kept falling before reaching your mouth. Dreamed of a road home, but running turned your feet to mud, stuck to the ground. Dreamed of your mother calling you for dinner, then turning to see her in a helmet, face bloody, holding a bayonet. You woke gasping, heart pounding like a war drum. Those dreams were scary but still real. They had shapes, people, voices from the past, until the dreams changed. They came slowly. First, blurry images of yourself, standing before you in a torn uniform, face blank. Then one night you see yourself in a trench, freezing, coughing endlessly, and across the ditch, you're aiming a rifle. Not someone like you, not a copy. You, as you live, as you hurt, as you think, that you stares with empty eyes. No anger, no pity, as if you're just a bad image to erase. And he shoots. The bullet pierces your chest. You wake, soaked in sweat, not from cold, but because for the first time you were killed by yourself in a dream. The next nights, the dream repeats. This time, you're shot while eating, while writing a letter, while washing in murky water. Always you, approaching, unhurried, without hate, and shooting, never hesitating, never pausing, never explaining why. You tell Micah, the blacksmith is brewing cough medicine with damp straw under a table. He doesn't look at you, just says, "So you've started splitting yourself." You ask, "Splitting?" Micah says, voice low like a hammer on an anvil. One part lives, one part waits to die. The waiting part always wants to hurry. You go quiet, say no more. But that night, you don't sleep. You're scared that if you close your eyes, you'll come again and shoot your head this time. The next morning, you march through a field of muddy corpses. On an enemy soldier's body, a young face, you see a cracked piece of mirror. You look into it, see yourself, eyes sunken, forehead wrinkled like an old man's, skin grey as ash. You think, if I met myself now, I'd shoot too. Not from hate, but to end it. End the coughing with no air. End eating without knowing what you ate. End mornings, waking unsure who's gone. End the groans in the night. Rats chewing feet. Your name called in your head, to check if you're still there. And you understand, the dream isn't wrong. It says what you won't admit. You want to kill yourself, but don't want to do it yourself. So the dream does it for you. The next night, you see yourself again. This time, you don't run. You stand still, look straight, and when the bullet flies, you don't dodge. But then you wake, still alive, still coughing, still hungry, and you think, I can't even die right. Then you collapse, sleep again, knowing next time, the one pulling the trigger will still be you. The battle that day began at dawn, when fog hung thick, like the breath of corpses, and the ground was still soft from last night's rain. You're ordered not to carry a rifle, not because they're out of guns, but because you're honored to carry something else. The flag, the unit's flag, the flag of glory, honor, ideals. A flag everyone cheers for during marches, but no one wants to hold when bullets fly. The sergeant shoves the flagpole into your hands, speaking as if handing you a sacred treasure. Hold tight, don't let it fall, even if you do. You nod, but you know, it's not a reward, it's a sentence. Because the flag bearer is the first target. Amid a sea of ducked helmets, the flag rises high like a red, white, blue bullseye screaming, "Shoot here!" You run, feet stomping over bodies, ears deafened by cannons, eyes blurred by smoke. The flag flaps above you, stained with blood, water, and the horror rising in your throat. Then a volley of bullets whistles by. The soldier to your right falls, head in the mud, still gripping his bayonet. The one to your left is hit in the chest. Blood sprays in an arc, red as the flag. You keep running, not from courage, but from fear that stopping means being draped by the very thing you hold. By noon, the battle ends. No one knows who won, only that the dead are too many to count. You stand in the battlefield, knees buckling, flag still in hand. The poles splintered, the cloth tattered, but you kept your promise. It didn't fall. A medic passes, face pale. He looks at your flag, whispers, "Did you know?" Then points to a large, dried, reddish-brown bloodstain on the corner. That cloth was used to cover a body yesterday. You stare at him, Say nothing. He adds, specifically, the 300th one. You grip the pole, feel your hands wet. You don't know if it's dried blood, re-soaked by fog, or your sweat seeping into the fabric. 300. A number. A person. Someone, maybe alive hours ago. Now just a stain on what's called a sacred symbol. You wonder if this flag is raised in a ceremony. Will anyone notice the blood? Will the mother of the 300th know her son's blood was used to wipe mud off the cloth? Or will they wash it, iron it, raise it, and cheer under the sun, like no one died for it? You don't know. You only know that when you return the flag to camp, the sergeant looks at you, expressionless, nods, good, didn't drop it, then turns away, doesn't ask how you feel, doesn't ask if your hands shake, doesn't ask if you'll sleep tonight, with the smell of corpses clinging to the flag's edge. You take the flag to a camp corner, hang it on a pole, the wind blows, the cloth flutters, and for a moment you think, nothing's holier than death, and nothing's more abused than it. You sit, eyes fixed on the flag. In the evening breeze, you almost hear a whisper from beneath the ground, faint, weak, choking, like a reminder, I'm the 300th. What number are you? You don't answer, because you don't know. Because here, you're just waiting your turn. And the flag you hold, tomorrow, it might drape your own face. The storm doesn't come with thunder. It starts with an eerie silence, as if the whole sky is holding its breath. The wind stills, clouds hang low, no one speaks. The soldiers in camp start looking up with the same expression, not fear, but a too familiar resignation. You look too, and for a moment, it feels like the sky is leaning down to whisper something awful in your ear. Then the wind comes, not howling, not raging, but piercing like steel needles through your collar, bending the camp's tattered ropes and rotten stakes. The rain follows, not lashing like a whip, but pouring like a heavy blanket, smothering everything. You have no raincoat, just a burlap scrap, once a blanket, now soaked like a long-drowned corpse. The ground turns to mush. Water rises from your feet. You stand in the tent, water up to your ankles, brown, murky, thick like gruel mixed with ash and grave mud. In 10 minutes, it's at your knees. The sergeant yells, abandon the tents, move to the ridge, but the ridge has no space. Everyone pushes, shoves, pulls. You try to run, but your feet sink. A wide mud pit appears from nowhere, maybe where they dug yesterday to bury 3 soldiers. The ground's soft, you misstep, and fall. Your back hits first, then your whole body plunges into the pit like a snapped tree. In an instant, mud covers your face, mouth, nose. You thrash. But the more you struggle, the deeper you sink. An arm reaches up, grabs a root. You cling to it like it's God's hand, but no one pulls you up. They don't see, or if they do, they lack the strength to help. The rain keeps pouring. Mud keeps rising, the earth keeps pulling. You're pressed into the ground, as if the earth is hungry, and your lunch. Your mouth opens to scream, but mud floods in. You choke, your heart pounds, your lungs crush, like they're hooked on iron, and yet, you're still breathing. A small pocket, between your face and the thick mud, allows a few wisps of air, not enough to call living, just enough to not die. You lie there, buried alive in mud, fully awake, fully aware you're being swallowed by earth. No one knows where you are, no one calls your name, no one looks. You're part of the flood, one of hundreds of tiny creatures erased from the surface by mud and silence. Time freezes. You don't know how long it's been, a minute, 10, an hour. You lose track, but you keep breathing. Each breath a battle, each movement a pain. You can't move your legs, your hands cramp, but your head still pokes above, and the only thing keeping you conscious is your heartbeat, not in your chest, but in your ears, like a drum echoing from the earth. Then someone walks by. A boot crushes your fingers. You twitch, your fingers curl. Someone stops. There's someone down there. A shout, and then hands, pulling, digging, parting mud. You're lifted. Your eyes are closed. You cough out mud, like vomiting organs. Your body shakes like a steamed fish. Someone says, damn, thought you were dead. You don't answer. Can't. Your eyes open. See the sky broken. No clouds. No rain. Just a blank grey expanse. You're placed at the camp's edge. No one has a blanket. They wrap you in a canvas still smelling of a dead man's piss. You lie there, not cold, not hot, not trembling, just still, as if your soul is still under that mud, unrescued. And you think, dying isn't as scary as knowing you're dying, and no one sees. And if another storm comes, you're not sure you'll try to climb out again. Maybe next time, you'll breathe lightly, and let go, and let the earth finish the rest. The bullet comes from behind, left side, piercing the thin skin at your ribs, slicing a searing path like a red-hot blade, then exiting out front. You don't hear the shot. You just feel your body fold like a sack with a cut bottom. Your face hits the ground, hat flies off, dirt fills your mouth. For the first 2 seconds, you think someone pushed you hard. By the third, blood pours from your coat's edge, scalding. By the fourth, pain crashes over you like a tide, sharp, bone-breaking, skin-stripping, but you're still alive. And you realize being shot doesn't hurt as much as being forgotten. Because after your first scream, after a weak meal like a sick kitten, no one runs to you. The soldiers around keep shooting, crawling, shouting, not because they don't see, but because they don't dare see. You try to raise a hand, blood dripping from your stomach like a tapped spigot. Help me, you mumble, but the sound dissolves in cannon roars and boots trampling bodies. A comrade rushes past. He glances down for half a second, then turns away. You don't blame him. You understand. Stopping means dying with you. And so, you're left, lying there. Blood flows, soaking the earth, blending with mud, no different from piss, rain, or the sweat of hundreds spilled on this ground. You start to shake, not from cold, from the absolute silence of being forgotten. You stop screaming, stop thrashing. You just think, this is how I die. Not from the bullet, but because no one remembers I was shot. You lie on your side, seeing the sky sliced by charred branches. A bird glides past, not bothering to look down, like the soldiers, like God, like everything, not looking down. An hour passes. You're still breathing, short, stolen gasps. You don't dare sleep. You're afraid if you close your eyes, no one will open them again. And then something hurts more. No one calls your name. No one asks, where's that guy? No one counts you missing. No one remembers you were here. As if, from morning till now, you never existed. The bullet didn't kill you. Forgetting did. You slump, eyes blur, heart slows. You don't call for help anymore. You don't hope for anyone. You just think of your mother's face. But it's too fuzzy. You can't remember clearly. Your sweetheart's name fades too. Even your own name starts to blur, and you're more terrified than ever. Not of death, but of vanishing without anyone knowing you were here. Then footsteps, hurried, heavy. Someone kneels beside you. Damn, still alive. It's Micah's voice, the blacksmith turned reluctant nurse. You move your lips, not sure what you say, but Micah places a hand on your chest. Your heart still beats. He pulls bandages from his bag, presses them to your wound. Your eyes blur from pain. You mumble, you knew I was shot. Micah doesn't look at you, just says, I counted heads, one missing. I went looking. And you cry, not for surviving, but because someone counted, someone remembered. In a world where people slide past each other like sand, you, just a nameless soldier, aren't left as another slash in the death ledger. You were counted by a rough hand, a calloused memory, a shred of humanity, left in a battlefield reeking of metal. As Micah carries you away, the pain returns like a storm, but you endure, because for the first time, you know someone knew you were here. And in war, that's the one thing that hurts more than a bullet, the feeling of vanishing without anyone knowing you ever existed. You once believed the enemy was a monster, a cold-faced killer, hands steady on the trigger, eyes unblinking as you fall. You were taught, the enemy is across the line, the traitors, the ones to destroy. You repeated it in your head every time you raised your rifle, like a prayer to keep your fingers steady, your heart calm. But then one foggy morning, thick with mildew, you saw him, the first enemy soldier whose face you saw clearly, not through a scope, not as he died, but as he hid. He didn't know you were there, didn't know you were watching. He crouched behind a broken tree, hands trembling like leaves, eyes darting like a wounded animal. He didn't shoot, didn't curse, didn't shout. He just hugged his knees and shook, exactly like you. And in that instant, everything you were taught shattered. The enemy wasn't a merciless beast. He was a man scared to breathe too loud. You watched him, gripping your rifle. You could shoot, easy as a snap. He didn't see you. He didn't raise his gun. He did nothing wrong, except be born on the other side. But you didn't shoot, not because you forgave him, but because you saw yourself in his hunched form, the way he closed his eyes and whispered to God, just like you did every night before sleeping in the trench. In that moment, silent, no alarms, no cannons, no blood, you and he were just two people trying to survive a war neither of you started. He opened his eyes, saw you. You locked gazes. No one shouted. No one raised a gun. No one moved. You saw fear in his eyes and realized it was the same fear you saw in a mirror 3 weeks ago when you thought you'd die coughing blood. The look of someone unsure if they're a soldier or a victim. He slowly backed away, slipped in the mud, fell backward. You didn't move. You thought, if I were him, I'd fall like that too. Then he crawled away, not daring to turn his back, retreating step by step, soaked, filthy, pathetic. And you let him go, because you knew shooting him now would be like shooting yourself, the last human part left in you. When you returned to camp, no one asked, how many did you kill? No one knew. No one needed to know. But you couldn't forget that face, those wide, wet eyes, filled with a feeling you thought only your side could have. That night, you didn't sleep. You thought of everyone you'd ever shot. How many were as scared as him? How many were just trying to survive, not win? How many, if you met them in a tavern after the war, would just be old men telling storm stories? No hate, no guns. You don't know, but you understood one thing. War taught you to fear, but never to admit the enemy fears like you. And that's why war drags on. Because if everyone saw the fear in each other's eyes, maybe fewer would pull the trigger. But no, they teach you to shoot, not to look. Yet today you looked, and you saw a man, not an enemy, not a warrior, just a man, like you. Like all those who didn't want to die, but were forced to hold a gun. And maybe that's the scariest thing you've seen. Not corpses, not blood, but the truth. Every enemy, if you look closely, could be you. You can't remember the last time you ate a real meal, not full, just real. Something with a smell, no mold, no mud, no dried blood or flies, until you got the package. A crumpled wax paper parcel, sealed with twine and tears, sent from home. Inside, a cornbread, golden brown, misshapen, cracked, slightly dry at the edges, but to you, it's a treasure. You didn't eat it right away. You tucked it inside your coat, near your chest, where you kept your mother's letter. That night, you crawled into the tent, stomach churning. The smell of rain, sweat, feet, none could overpower the memory. The scent of cornbread's singed edges, and your mother's hand holding a wooden spoon. You planned to save half for morning, half for afternoon. You slept with the smallest joy in weeks, a bread, and the next morning, you opened your bag. It was gone. The spot where the cornbread was, empty, your coat's lining torn slightly, as if someone slipped a hand in while you slept. You didn't scream, didn't groan. You just stood frozen, like your soul was stolen in the night. 8 men in the tent. No one spoke. No one looked at you, but everyone knew, and you knew one of them ate your bread. A piece of your memory, a piece of your home, the one thing that made you feel human, not a walking corpse. You stepped to the tent's center, eyes scanning each face. Who took it? Your voice low, not loud, but cold, cold as a bayonet touching blood. No one answered. Micah whispered, "Sit down. What can you do?" "They're hungry," but you didn't listen. Your eyes locked on one, Reddy, tall, lanky, once a miner from Tennessee. His eyes dodged yours. His hand brushed his pocket's edge. You stepped forward. He flinched back. You grabbed his collar, yanked him up. "Was it you?" you growled. He shook his head, but his eyes held fear and guilt. You couldn't stop. You punched. Hard. He fell, blood seeping from his lip. Someone shouted, "Enough!" But you didn't stop. You kicked, once, then again, mud splattered. He cried out. You didn't hear. Your mind looped one thought. He ate my home, not bread, home, your mother, your faith. The last thing you had in this rotting life, and he took it. You grabbed his neck, pulled the knife from your boot, meant to threaten. But your hand shook, not from fear, because you truly thought of stabbing, and you knew, if no one pulled you back then, you'd have killed, for a cornbread, for a piece of memory, for the last shred of humanity. Micah grabbed you from behind, held tight. Someone pried the knife from your hand. Reddy lay there, gasping, blood mixed with tears. You panted, collapsed, not from exhaustion, but because you just saw the darkest part of yourself emerge. In the silence, someone touched your shoulder. Didn't speak, didn't need to. Everyone understood. Today, you nearly killed over a bread. And today, war took another step in erasing the human left in you. That night, you didn't sleep. You were hungry. But hunger paled against emptiness. Outside, rain fell. Inside, no one dared meet your eyes. Because they knew no one in this camp was safe anymore. Not when a man could kill for a dry piece of flour from his mother's hands. And the next morning, you weren't hungry anymore. Just a bitter taste in your throat. Not from no bread, but because you knew you'd lost the right to call yourself human. You wrote the letter on a grey afternoon. When the wind stopped, the sky hung like an unlowered shroud, and the camp was so quiet you heard your own breath. A scrap of yellowed paper, torn from a dead sergeant's old notebook, and a pencil stub sharpened with a rusty knife. That's all you had, along with 2 hands, dirty as earth, trembling like grass in artillery rain. You began, "Dear Mom," then stopped. For months, you'd lived more than your whole life before, lived in mud, blood, oblivion, hunger, and confusion. You thought you'd write something strong, reassuring, or at least kind, but your hands couldn't write what your mouth once promised. They only shakily recorded a patchwork truth, as if you feared this letter would be the only thing left of you. You wrote slowly, so slowly, "I'm still alive. But war isn't like the books. Here, we don't sing, don't raise glory high. We dig graves, count bodies, and learn to sleep through groans. Every day survived is a miracle, even God might not repeat." You wrote of the endless cough, of feet so blistered you can't tell toes apart, of a friend shot before your eyes while laughing, of the cornbread you got from Mom, and how you nearly killed for it. You didn't name anyone, because you don't know if they're still alive to name. You didn't dare write "you miss home," because you feared it'd make Mom cry. But in the end you wrote, "If this letter reaches you, I might not be here, or if I'm alive, it's because I'm still trying to write something to keep me sane." You folded the letter. Your filthy hands left a smudged oil streak on the paper. You had no envelope, just tied it with thread picked from a singed coat of another soldier. You handed it to the courier, a 16-year-old boy, thin as bone, face blank as if death had drained his eyes of feeling. You looked at him, gripped his hand, and said only, "Please." He didn't reply, just nodded, then vanished into the fog. And you stood there, watching, not knowing if he'd make it, not knowing if the letter would reach your mother, not knowing if you'd live to see her open it. In those seconds, you realized something scarier than war, the fragile hope sent in a fragile letter, which you'll never know was read. That night, you lay in the tent, curled in a blanket, rotted like an old love. You no longer recalled home's smell, couldn't hear your mother's voice in your head, but you remembered you wrote, and you thought, "If I die, at least a scrap of paper says I existed. I breathed, I coughed, I feared, I loved. I was the son of a woman who baked singed cornbread." As you drifted off, in your dream, you saw the letter flying, not by bird, but by hand. And in the dark, your mother opened it, smiled, then cried, then whispered, "I know you're still out there." You needed nothing more, though you're never sure it's real. But in war, a dream is enough to make you want to live another day, just to write one more line. If there's still paper, if there's still a hand, if there's still you. That morning opened with an unusual silence. No drums, no shouted orders, no whispered alerts passed at dawn. Just a light breeze and thick fog blanketing every rifle, every moldy pack, every bloodstain not yet dried on the old trench. You woke with a strange feeling floating in the air. Not fear, not peace. Just empty. Empty enough that you heard your heart echo in your chest. Then someone ran by, panting, face bloodless. He shouted, "Truce, ceasefire." The words hit like a stone on a still lake. A second man looked up, a third froze. The camp stirred like a dark room lit by a candle. No one knew whether to rejoice, fear, or check if it was a trick. You stood, legs trembling as always, but for the first time in months, no gunfire woke you. A whisper floated in your head. The war is over, but then a crack from the enemy line. A bullet tore through the air, and someone fell. A soldier in your unit, Thomas, shot through the neck while staring blankly at the clouds. No one fired back, but no one smiled. Everyone ducked, grabbing Thomas's limp body. He gurgled, blood spurting with each heartbeat. You pressed his neck wound, your hands soaked red. Micah yelled, "It's a truce." God damn it, they said a truce. But no one heard God, because God didn't get the memo to all frontline soldiers. The truce was signed, but no one was told in time. The courier got stuck. The officer lost contact. The man carrying the ceasefire order drowned crossing a river 2 days ago. And so, the war went on, not from hate, but because no one knew to stop. Another bullet whistled past your ear. The man beside you fell, hit in the chest. Another, hearing the truce, stepped out of cover, shot in the thigh. You screamed, "Stop, it's over, truce," but your voice didn't carry as far as bullets. You thought of the insane paradox unfolding. The day the world stopped fighting was the day your comrades died, because the news didn't arrive. Then you laughed, a hollow, hysterical laugh. No one stopped you anymore, but no one joined, because 3 men were dying, and 1 was already dead. By noon, an officer rode up, face smeared, holding a trembling order. The war's over. As of this morning, effective across the line. Someone asked, "What time this morning?" The officer stammered, 6 a.m. You looked at your broken watch, stuck at 5:58, for 3 weeks. Then you looked where Thomas was dragged away. His blood was still there. His footprints were still there. His warmth probably lingered under the dirt. And you understood. 2 minutes. Just because the truce news was 2 minutes late, 1 man didn't make it home. And who knows, across the line, how many fell after the truce, because a bullet was fired before the order came. Or worse, because the shooter didn't believe peace was real. That night, no one celebrated. No one popped a bottle, or sang Dixie, or battle hymn. No one raised a flag. No one fired rifles to the sky, because everyone knew peace doesn't come with a signature. It starts when the last person stops shooting, and no one knew who'd be the last. You sat in the tent, staring at the pinned-up ceasefire notice on a tree, your hands still stained with Thomas's blood, and you thought, how do you tell his mother her son died on the day of peace? No one knew the answer, only the wind blowing through a camp, no longer a camp, through bodies still unburied, through a flag still flying torn, through you, and you didn't know whether to cry or laugh anymore, because today was the truce, but bullets still flew, and the only question in your head was, how many must die for peace before peace truly begins? You stepped off the wagon at the last rear line stop. No welcome, no drums, no flags in the breeze, just a dusty dirt road leading to the old tree line, where your family's wooden house once stood, where your mother hung blankets on a rope, where you played slingshot with your little brother, missing since the war's 2nd year. Your hand held a torn cloth bag, the only thing left after 3 years of fighting, 5 bouts of malaria, 2 near deaths, and a bullet wound still unhealed at your ribs. You walked home, each step dragging a faint whistle from your knee, ruined from a winter buried in trenches. You tried to keep your back straight, though your spine twisted like half-burned kindling. Seeing the familiar wooden fence, your heart pounded. You pictured your mother running out, eyes teary, to hug you, pictured the smell of singed cornbread, pictured a hand on your shoulder, saying, "You're home, son." But standing at the door, everything froze. No one came out. You knocked, once, twice, 3 times. A young girl opened, not your mother. Her eyes widened. She looked at you like a lost stranger. "You need something." Her voice unfamiliar, distant, a bit scared. You stammered, I'm Mary Talbot's son. This is my home." She didn't nod, didn't smile. She called inside. "Ma, some stranger's asking for you." An old woman appeared, not your mother. She leaned on a cane, back hunched, eyeing you through cloudy glasses. "You say you're who?" You repeated your name, surname, birthplace, every detail etched in your enlistment record. She stayed silent, then shook her head. "I bought this house last year. The old owner, an old lady, she's dead." It was like someone yanked the ground from under you. "She died when, to February," she said. "They said she had a son in the army. didn't come back. You couldn't speak. Your heart raced, then skipped. Your throat burned like charred paper. You turned away, stood in the yard. Wind blew. The door closed behind you like a soft tap on a coffin, burying your memories. You sat under the tree, where your father once tied the horse. The tree was rotten, the rope gone, everything gone. You didn't cry, couldn't, just felt your eyes sting from the wind. You wandered through the village. People looked at you. A bearded, gaunt man, army clothes faded, eyes sunken, hands curled, limping like a cripple. No one recognized you. No one called your name. Children stared like you were a ghost. A baker stared long, then whispered to his wife, "He's probably mad," smells of gunpowder. And you understood. You survived the war, but no one knew you survived. No one waited. No one believed you'd return. No one kept your memory, or they locked it away last month when a false death notice came. A small tag, your name, unit, presumed dead, assumed gone too long. You wanted to scream, "I'm not dead, I'm me," but you didn't, because deep down, you began to doubt. Are you still you? 3 years in mud, corpses, bullets, and nightmares scraped away everything that was you. The boy playing behind the house, the young man dreaming of law, the son hugging his mother before enlisting, all dead. And what's left? The soldier who did things no one should, saw things no one should, survived nights no one should, now stood where home once was, like a ghost with no shelter. You left the village that evening, walking aimlessly, directionless. As the sun set, you lay by a forest's edge, beside a rock, warmed by the day's sun. You closed your eyes. For the first time in ages, you didn't dream of bullets, of bayonets. You dreamed of a hand opening a door. Your mother, she smiled. "You're home, son." But when you woke, it was dark, and no one called your name anymore. The hill where your comrades are buried isn't high, has no stone markers, no white painted fence, no waving flags, just a patch of gravelly mud with a few hastily nailed boards, names blurred by rain and wind. You walk past each grave, feet sinking in soft mud, hand brushing smudged inscriptions. Private James A. died September 4th. Micah Ra, medic. Unknown. No one knows. Then you see him, the one in the small grave at the hill's far corner. The friend you laughed with, coughed with, carried through a trench when he burned with fever, died for real, from a stray bullet, on a day that seemed calm. His name scrawled sloppily on the wood, the tie backward, because the soldier who made it hadn't slept in 4 days. You sit, knees creaking like a rusted hinge. You don't cry. You look at the grave, then laugh. A strange laugh, not loud, not sharp, just trembling in your chest like a stifled cough. You laugh remembering how he snored like a bellowing ox, but swore he slept gentle as a maiden. You laugh because he stole the sergeant's socks and blamed a dog. You laugh because you once fought over a bread scrap, then slept back to back that night to stay warm. You laugh, then laugh louder, so loud that passers-by stare like you're a madman sitting on cold dirt, but you don't care, because you know, if you don't laugh, you'll break. Break like a clay bowl falling from a shelf. No warning, nothing to save. You don't recall how many times you nearly died. You didn't count how many times you wiped others' blood on your hands, and still ate with them. You stopped asking if you're still human. But here, among silent names, with wind whistling through dry grass, leaves rustling like whispers from the dead, you realize pain can't scream forever. It turns to laughter, a warped, absurd, irreverent laugh, but truer than any eulogy.
Us?
You laugh remembering him writing to his mother, asking you, "Did I spell blood right?" You laugh recalling him saying, "If I die, don't bury me near those farting bastards." You laugh as if stopping would let all the groans, gunshots, fire, fall back, run, rush back, crushing you to dust. Someone asks, "You okay?" You nod, still laughing, then say, "I've never been okay, but I'm alive." They back away. You turn to the grave, sigh, and whisper, "I'm back, you bastard. You're not. I hate you for leaving me with these memories. But I know, if we switched, you'd hate me too." The wind picks up. You stand, brush your hands, laugh once more, softer, like laying an invisible wreath, laughing, not to forget, but because you remember too well, and if you don't laugh, Your heart will burst. You walk away, carrying the laugh, like a tattered cloak, shielding your cracked soul. No one understands, but you don't need them to, because here, it's just you and those under the ground, and they won't judge you for laughing, because they know anyone who survived war and can still laugh has already cried all their tears long ago. You left the army with a thin cloth bag, 3 rusty coins, a discharge paper signed by an officer you never met, and a bronze medal smaller than a penny. They pinned it to your chest in a brief ceremony, in the middle of a ruined camp courtyard, with a few half-hearted claps, and some staring as if wondering, why not me? The medal glinted in the afternoon sun, not because it was valuable, but because it was new. So new you suspected it was cast that morning, just in time to hand to you, like a belated nod from the country, as if saying, thanks for not dying. You didn't know what to do with it. Pin it to your chest. Pointless. Everyone looked at your gaunt face, bony hands, hunched back, and sleepless eyes, not the tiny piece of metal. Put it in your pocket. You feared it tear the only paper with your name still intact. Wear it around your neck. It'd look like a bullet casing amulet. You tucked it in your inner coat pocket, near your heart, where it raced at the sound of your first cannon, and you left the camp. They said, go home, rest, rebuild your life. But you didn't know what rebuild meant when you woke each night to the cough of a soldier dead 2 years ago, when your hands shook holding a bread knife, because it looked too much like a bayonet, when you couldn't sit longer than 10 minutes, because your back, broken in the June battle, was never fixed. Each morning, you moved like an 80-year-old, groaning like a wounded animal. Your spine was like a string of misaligned pearls, bulging here, sunken there, hollow and aching. You once asked a realigned doctor to check it. He nodded, scribbled, then said, not severe enough for aid. Keep moving. You looked at him, then at your swollen potato-like foot, and wanted to ask, have you ever lain in a trench for 3 weeks without stretching your legs? But you stayed silent, as you did when left in the mud, buried alive, shot through the ribs with no one remembering your name. You kept living, took odd jobs at a carpentry shop, held a hammer with hands that once held a rifle, carried wood with a back that once bore corpses. At night, you sat on your bed, opened your coat, took out the medal, and stared at it, not from pride, but because there was nothing else to look at. Mother gone, old house sold, comrades dead. Your eyes sunken, hands scarred. Only this small bronze piece reminded you. Yeah, I was there, I survived. But one evening, a kid ran into the shop, saw the medal on the table, and asked, what's that, mister? You looked at him, almost said glory, then laughed, a tired laugh. You said, it's a nameplate for a lifetime of back pain. The kid didn't get it, but you didn't need him to. How could he know each step you took was pain? Each dream was a field of corpses. Each morning, you had to remind yourself, I'm back, I'm not there anymore. But the worst part was, the rest of you was still there, still stuck in mud, gun smoke, the fading eyes of the friend you couldn't save. You lived, you laughed, you braced your back when you bent, and each time, the medal in your pocket pressed against your ribs, reminding you, the cost of survival wasn't scars, it was living on when others didn't get the chance. And you kept living, not heroic, not glorious, just living, with a medal and a back that hurt for life. No one told you that war doesn't end when the guns stop, but when the echoes in your head do. That day never came, though you now sit in a small cafe by the church, where they raise a flag every Monday and blare the national anthem at 7 a.m. You still hear bullets, not from the speaker, but from your mind. Your hand trembles touching the coffee cup, not from heat, but because it reminds you of nights clutching a warm tin of piss, the only thing staving off bone-chilling cold in the trench. Someone's laughing at the next table. A young guy who's never seen blood pour from a friend's neck, like a broken faucet, waves his hand talking about the glory of battle, the honor of serving the nation, and you stay silent. You don't say he's wrong. You don't have the strength. But in your head, a film replays frame by frame, the wheezing breath of a man with shrapnel in his gut, the lingering smell of burnt flesh, the empty eyes of someone who once told you about his first love. And when the speaker starts the anthem, everyone stands, hands on their left chest. A kid salutes, an old man hums along. Only you stand frozen, eyes wide, sweat dripping from your shirt, though it's only 68 degrees this morning. Oh, say can you see, the song hits your ears like a wave, but instead of pride, you hear someone yelling, "Get down," and the whistle of shells. You hear your friend call your name, one last time. You feel your knees ache, like when you fell into a muddy ditch, thinking you'd suffocate. You place your hand on your chest like the others, but feel nothing but a hole. The hole where your heart once felt something. Now, just a space for lingering numbness. Each anthem word is a needle, not in your skin, but your memory. What so proudly we hailed. You recall the day the flag was stained with the 300th man's blood, the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. You recall the night buried alive in mud, with no bombs, only water and oblivion. They say the anthem stirs patriotism. For you, it's a bell calling back ghosts. After the song, everyone sits. You stay standing, eyes red, unsure if from tears, or the old cough from lungs never fully healed. The young waitress approaches, tilts her head, asks, "You okay, sir?" You nod, say nothing. Because how do you explain that a song sung with full heart can't mend a mind crushed by 3 years of near death? You go home, hang your coat, look in the mirror. The man there has grey hair, a hunched back, eyes that saw too much death to know how to see life. You open a drawer, pull out your mother's old letter, its ink faded, then the medal. You set both on the table. Next to them, the bullet you dug from your flesh, the only keepsake from the day you were shot, and no one remembered your name. You look at all three, paper, bronze, lead, none heal what you lost. No song sung loud brings back the dead. No war drum makes you sleep without dreaming of heads rolling while you eat lunch. No flag, no matter how high it flies, covers the hole in your soul. Some say, be proud you served. You smile, a bitter smile, not because you disagree, but because pride isn't a painkiller. Some say, at least you came back, and you want to reply, I came back, but I'm not the one who left. Then you sit at the table, write a letter, to no one, just write. I heard the anthem this morning, but I didn't see tears, didn't see pride. I only saw my friends, under dirt, under grass, under stones, and I don't know if that song ever reached their ears. If it does, please sing softly, let them rest. You fold the letter, tuck it away, then turn off the light, and think, peace isn't the absence of gunfire. Peace is when your head stops hearing it. And maybe you'll never truly have peace, because no anthem, however grand, can heal a mind that saw too much it shouldn't have. You sit on the steps of your small rented house in the suburbs, living off wages from mopping floors at a tractor repair shop, when a neighbor's radio blares through an open window, a sharp, urgent voice, like a march order. Tensions at the border are rising. The army needs more men, and in that moment, your heart stabs, like someone flicked it hard. You freeze. Your neck tingles. Ears ring, as if the years buried in your spine surge up from their grave. You look down. Your right arm is gone. From the elbow, just empty space, a wooden stump tied with old cloth to hook your sleeve. You lost it in the war's final year, in a sudden blast when things seemed calm. Gone, bone, muscle, the ability to open a pickle jar without help. And yet, hearing that call, you want to stand, want to hold a rifle. Though you have no arm, you laugh, a laugh scraping from a parched throat. Why, you ask yourself. You've had enough pain, enough loss, enough unraveling. You're not a soldier anymore. No duty, no strength, not even enough teeth to chew hard biscuits. Yet, one radio command and your heart tightens, your feet shift, as if a single call of your name would make you stand, return to that smoky pit, without hesitation, not because you love war, not because you forgot the unmarked graves, but because you know, if you don't go, another will die, instead. A kid who's never heard screams from a gutless man in daylight, a kid who's never eaten gruel tasting of gunpowder, a kid who doesn't know what war really is. And you, a survivor of hell, would go back, just so those younger don't learn what hell smells like. You clutch your stumped shoulder. It aches, stings, but not as much as the ache in your chest. Did I survive to see another war spark? You walk inside, open the drawer, pull out the old medal. It's still cold, still heavy, still a reminder. You did what no one wanted, to spare someone else from doing it. You stare at it, then, reflexively, place it on your left chest, where your heart once beat hardest at the sound of alarm drums. No one calls you to enlist again. No one wants a hunched, one-armed old man for battle. But you know, if someone knocked, you'd follow. Not for honor, not for country, not for anthems, but because in your head, that order never truly stopped. You once dreamed of living peacefully, as a civilian, but war forged you into something never truly civilian again. And you understand if that day comes, when someone shouts, "Grab your guns," you'll lean on your left shoulder, grip a rifle with your teeth, if needed. Because sometimes, surviving means never leaving the war, and sometimes, the order doesn't come from above, but from a mind forever warped by gunfire you thought you forgot. In short, if you were a soldier in the American Civil War, you didn't really live. You just died slowly. Not instantly, not completely, not once, but piece by piece. The day you were drafted, you didn't know the living part of you was hanged with the muster roll. You thought you'd fight for ideals, glory, freedom, or a flag's colors. But the only thing you fought for was the rotting shell you still called me. First, you died from smells, the stench of moldy straw, dried blood, unburied bodies. Each day, you woke to comrades' groans, and if no one groaned, they were dead. Then you died from hunger, not the mild hunger before lunch, but the kind that made you consider biting a live rat. Biscuits hard as stone, water dirtier than a pig's trough, and when you got a cornbread from home, you nearly killed for it, not from greed, but because hunger stripped your humanity. You died next from cold. Trench cold wasn't like porch winter breezes. It sank into your bones, curling you up like a pup, shivering in a blanket, soaked with rain and piss. Some nights you coughed blood, not from ruined lungs, but because faith in life froze and tore inside your chest. Then you died from gunfire, not because it killed you, but because it turned your head into an echo chamber. Even after the war, shots rang in your sleep while washing your hands during anthems. They no longer fired bullets, they fired memories, fired at moments you thought you forgot. And finally, you died from being forgotten. Not on the battlefield, but after coming home, home where no one remembered you. They got a false death notice 3 months ago. They shut the door, sold the house, raised a marker for your name. When you returned, no one waited. No one called your name, but the wind, and you realized you died in their hearts long ago. So when they gave you a medal, a cold metal piece too small to cover your lifelong back pain, you laughed, because you knew they thought you a hero. But you knew you just lived a few minutes longer than the guy beside you. And living longer in war meant living to see more die. You lived to see the friend you laughed with lose his head mid-lunch, lived to see comrades trembling as they shot their own, unable to tell northern from southern accents, lived to hear a truce was signed, but bullets still flew because no one got the news, lived to laugh at your friends' graves because if you didn't, you'd shatter, and lived to know that, though you lost an arm, a leg, your last good memory, you'd still grab a gun if some invisible order sounded, because you're no longer a man, you're war, in the shape of a survivor. They'll ask how do you feel after the Civil War, and you won't answer. Because what's left to say? You didn't win, you didn't lose, you just remained, and remaining is the closest a living person can get to death. Grey hair early, eyes dim, back aching, ears hearing cannons when the wind blows. You're a witness to what history calls a turning point in the nation's fate, but you know that fate was bought with blood, guts, and sleepless nights, forever unpeaceful. If you were a Civil War soldier, you didn't live, you existed. You drifted through days, battles, endless nights, like a wrecked ship, unsure where it's headed, only knowing that stopping means sinking. And one day, when they raise monuments, sing anthems, hold memorials, you, if still breathing, will sit in a corner, stump hidden under your coat, eyes on the ground, thinking, if they knew what war really was, they'd never sing, they'd whisper, they'd stay silent, they'd cry, but you don't say it, because you've been silent too long, long enough. You just hope, if there's a next life, don't make you wear a uniform again, don't call your name in formation, don't hand you another medal, let you be a normal man, who sleeps soundly, loves, cries for something other than death. That's all, because if you were a Civil War soldier, your life wasn't living, It was a slow dying, and the cost of existing was carrying the war with you for the rest of your days, in your heart, in your mind, in every last breath. The story of a Civil War soldier is a painful but necessary reminder for us today that not all wounds are visible, and not all who survive truly live. Through each part, from being drafted with no way out, eating biscuits harder than ammo boxes, to being buried alive in mud, coughing blood, losing an arm but still wanting to grab a rifle at a call, the story makes one thing clear: war doesn't just take lives, it grinds down souls day by day. In today's America, where modern wars leave quieter but no less brutal marks, from PTSD in Iraq, veterans to isolation, unemployment, and lack of mental health support for those who served, we see the shadow of that Civil War soldier. He didn't die on the battlefield, but died slowly in memories no one understands and silence no one sees. The lesson here is listen, recognize, and stand with them. When we see a veteran sitting alone, not singing the anthem, not joining parades, it's not because they're ungrateful, but because they carry battles we can't imagine. Like the soldier who laughed at his friend's grave because not laughing would break him, many in our society use laughter to stay whole. As citizens of a nation that bled for freedom, our greatest lesson isn't in empty patriotism, but in genuine compassion. Don't just say thank you for your service, ask what they need to keep living. If this story stirred something in you, even a little, please subscribe to join me in facing the forgotten truths of history. Thank you for listening to the end, and see you in the next video, where we'll dig deeper into the painful but necessary slices of the past.